almost 6 years we're in Canada. So we moved over there in 2012 and then come back at the end of 2017. So man, to be back here now with a family and to come back and be a pro, that was like always the dream. Didn't leave Australia because I didn't want to be a pro in Wollongong or in Australia, but to come back here as a professional athlete and a pro mountain bike rider it's perfect. It's ideal. Like having 2 kids and a career, and like the amount of travel that I do, some kind of thing, you know, my wife is amazing. Like she looked after all that and just took it all in a stride. And man, she was by herself a lot with 2 little screaming babies, and it's pretty difficult. So now to come back and have that family support with both sets of parents and our friends and having everything super close makes a huge difference. You know, it's a massive weight off my mind when I'm traveling and training and racing. Yeah, you know, the kids get to grow up with their grandparents as well and their little cousins and our friends' kids and all that kind of stuff. So it's relieving. It feels nice, and it's just makes it a little bit more enjoyable. Like you get to spread the joy a little bit with more people than just used to. In the back of my head, we moved to chase the scene. We moved closer to the industry, and that's where I needed to be to get a job, sort of thing. I left a cross-country rider with this idea of racing enduro and Super D and all this kind of stuff. So I went to the North Shore of Vancouver, and like you're in the mountain bike mecca of the world. The trails over there are some of the best, gnarliest trails you'll find anywhere in the world. So for me to come back home to my hometown after riding those trails for the last 6 years, I was like, ooh, are they going to be good enough? Like, is there enough back home, and is there enough trails and enough stimulus to keep pushing me and keep performing at that level? And man, coming back, I couldn't be more stoked. Like the amount of new trails that are popping up at home. There's a massive scene of guys that are riding, building, shredding. The scene in Australia in general has just exploded. So I couldn't be more stoked with the decision to move back for the training and for my career. And I really think this is the place to be to put it all together and really start performing in these next couple of years, especially this season, to be ready to take on the world's best. You know, you're not racing a couple of guys in your local scene or a couple of guys in Australia. Like every single person in that top 30 is there as a professional athlete, most of them. And you know, 1 second is the difference between 5 positions, and one mistake is 5 seconds, bang, you're outside the top 20. You have to be prepared, you have to be committed, and last year I wasn't, and it showed. To come back here and hit reset in every possible way, everything except my sponsor, Giant, is different. So heading into a new season with that attitude and a whole fresh outlook, a fresh bike, a fresh scene, fresh town, fresh everything, it feels great. As overwhelming as it was to start with, now it feels awesome. Here, you can train from 5 till 6 every day. So the last few months worth of training that I've done is like almost triple the amount of training I usually get done in winter. And I can still be home and be dad. I can still be a husband. I can still hang out with my family and still have that connection with my kids and have a life outside of it too. You're not just waking up, suffering, training, cleaning, eating, going back to sleep. You know, you can hang out, go to a park, go swimming, go riding, hang out with the boys, go for dinner or beer or whatever. So it's really cool. When I ride around here on the local trails on Mount Kira or Possums or Mount Kembla or anywhere, you run into groups and groups of families that are out riding, like dads who are taking their sons shuttling, and they know who you are, and they'll stop and you'll have a chat and talk about this and that, and later you hear that, you know, they're your biggest fans and they're stoked on your riding and they're riding trails because they saw that you grew up riding those trails and now I'm racing around the world. So to come back and see that, it does make it feel like you're doing a little bit more than just skids. In the lead up to the season now, it's definitely pretty structured and pretty scheduled. With the kids, I've got to be pretty dialed with my schedule during the week. It's not like by an hour to hour basis, but most mornings I'm awake at 5:30 on the roadie, in the gym, and then big mountain bike days. So now, this close to the season, it's lots of mountain bike riding. You know, very specific, lots of downhill time, big hours, just getting as dialed as we can on the bike. Same coach, but like a new strength trainer this year. Like the strength trainer I was working with in BC, we had heaps of contact together, so which was one of the best things about our program. And we had an amazing few years together, but now coming back to Australia, I wanted that same contact, so I went full-time with my coach, Mark Fenner, of FTP training. So he's doing most of my engine work, and we're building our program bigger, better, faster, fitter than ever. And we're working with a strength trainer from Perth, Sarah Hunter. It's been great. Something totally different to what I've done the last couple of years, but same kind of guidelines, and it's really, really good. It's nice to do something different and have a fresh set of eyes on something, you know. So we've got DVO suspension this year, Shimano cockpit with Pro bars and Pro stem, Shimano brakes, Shimano drivetrain, XTR Di2. We've got Maxxis tyres, So the whole thing's different. Like the tires are dramatically different. They react totally different to our old tires. The brakes have a different contact patch to our old brakes. You think it's just brakes, what's the difference? But one used to drag, now it's like on or off. And that's totally different when you're coming into a corner. And even finding out like your own preferences, like where you like that to sit. The bar's got a different sweep to it. It's a carbon bar, the forks, dramatically different to anything I've ever ridden before. DVO have created a product that I don't know if I've necessarily been searching for, but it's something that I always wanted to feel, but it just never existed. So now DVO have got this product in their fork and a setup that it just works. And now I've got a setup dialed with that, I couldn't be more stoked with how it feels. So all the components are bolted onto the 2018 Giant Advanced frame. So it's a carbon frame that we developed the last few years. We launched it halfway through last year. It's a project that I was involved in from the very start. So in the beginning of 2016, the head engineer sat us down and was like, okay, what do you want? And that was an overwhelming experience, that bike's one of the most popular bikes that Giant sells. So to be given that responsibility about how to change it or what to change to make it better, it was overwhelming. So we lengthened it, changed to a trunnion mount shock, and the linkage was a little bit different. So it pedaled better, it made the rear end feel shorter. The extra length gave us more room to play with and made it feel even more stable. Originally we wanted to make it longer so we could get back onto our kind of true sizes. So I was riding a large, moved up to an extra large. So now with the extra length of the frame, we're hoping we'd go back to a large, but in the end it just made it even better. So the main focus right now is the 2018 EWS series. It's all systems go now to prepare for Chile and Colombia and hit the season running. And then as soon as that season finishes, I'm super keen to come back and start racing in Australia for that Continental series of going to Gold Coast, Bulla, Derby, wherever else it takes us, So to come back home and do some racing here in Australia would be great. The EWS now is all of a sudden turning into the dad club. Sam's got a bunch of kids, Damien Oton's, there's a big French movement, they're all having kids now, Remy Absalon's about to have one, Yo Borelli. It gives you a different perspective on a lot of stuff. It makes you focus your time a little bit more, You don't just have that freedom to do whatever you want. You've got to look after your babies. I get accused of taking it a little bit too serious sometimes, but man, I've got a wicked opportunity to be a professional athlete racing mountain bikes around the world. So I don't want to waste one moment or, half-ass anything. I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it properly, and moving back here has enabled me to do that. So yeah, maybe having kids or being a dad or whatever's changing the game in enduro. Or maybe it's the opposite, maybe enduro just lends itself to those kind of people because you have to deal with some shit and just deal with it. Having two kids and traveling's definitely made it a lot more difficult to be away from home for a bunch of reasons, It's difficult to be away when you spend so much time with them, and they're your little babies, right? Like Eli's almost 2.5. He's just full board. He started daycare and loving being back in Australia. And Remy, she's 10 months old at the moment, and she's running around the place, and she's just as full bore, if not more. So he spends so much time with them through the summer training, and then to go away for big blocks at a time. It's definitely difficult to leave them. You feel like you're missing out a little bit, but to be back here in Australia and have that supportive family around us, I'm a lot more at ease knowing that Lisa's got some help and got some support, and kids have got someone to play with, and that's kind of a huge relief. The last 6 months of moving home, and last year, as horrible as last year was, it really made me realize a lot of things about my program. Maybe change a lot of stuff to make me a better athlete and really figure out what makes me tick and how to do this properly, And I think the last few months, towards the end of the season, I made a couple of really big changes, or kind of subtle changes that made a huge difference. I feel like I'm in a much better place than I've ever been before. So ride like I've always wanted to ride and perform how I think I can perform at every race. And that's the biggest thing, you don't have to be the fastest on that day, but you have to be the most consistent every weekend and every stage. The results and all the stages have proven that if you're consistently fast and consistently good, you'll be there at the end. So if you can be as fast as you want, but it's not going to be there all the time because there's so many unpredictable elements. I don't know if I really have a number or a position or whatever in mind, but I know that if I can ride well and perform how I want to perform, I'm confident that I can be up near the front and mixing it with those guys and be consistent. I've got the team around me, I've got the bike, got the components, everyone that I've surrounded myself with believes in what I can do, and yeah, I still believe that I can make it happen. So I can't wait to just have a crack and get back amongst it.